Scholars, let's talk about how to write funny. Keep in mind, it's very hard to write funny things, especially if it's in a second language. So, as we attempt to write satire articles, don't feel bad if it's not that funny. I'm not grading you on how funny your satire article is. It's just some practice. So, here are some tips. Tip number one, read funny stuff. That's how you develop your own sense of humor. If you read funny writing, if you occasionally watch comedians online or on the TV, that'll help you decide what you like in terms of the humorous. One option is to peruse this website, The Onion. The Onion is one of the most famous humorous newspapers in the English speaking world. Uh, If, however, you peruse this website, perhaps set yourself a timer so you don't get sucked in, because you do need to use these lessons to get stuff done. Warning, the onion can be a little naughty. I do not take responsibility for what you find there. Tip number two, create a funny headline. So you could write a super funny article, but if the headline isn't really clickbait for people, they're not going to read it. So the headline is what tempts people to read your funny article. Here's the thing, every writer at The Onion is expected to propose 25 funny headlines per week. Most of them aren't used, but it generates ideas. So the editors look at those kind of proposition or proposals and they say to each writer, all right, out of your 25 suggestions, this is the one that's the most funny. Write an article about that one. More on this later. I'm going to make you write 10 headlines. They don't all have to be funny. But when you write headline ideas before actually writing your article, it generates inspiration, so to speak. And then you just pick the one that's the most funny. Next tip. This is just an option. You don't have to do this. You could pick a boring topic, but write about it in super formal, serious newspaper language. AP style is Associated Press. That's like the Bible of newspaper style, language, and whatnot in the English speaking world. Anyway, making something banal, like very cliche or normal, seem very formal and important could be funny. Or you could do the opposite, which is pick an absurd topic and make it seem normal. So, writing about the zombie apocalypse or Stockholm's imminent destruction dryly or in a chill way, as if it's totally normal, could be funny. Those are just suggestions. They're not like you have to do that. Here's another suggestion. Pick a topic that either delights you or infuriates you. In other words, you love it or it makes you angry. It is more fun to write about something you're passionate about. So, for example, say there's something you hate and you write about it as if you love it. Readers will sense that sarcasm and maybe find it a little funny or relatable or something. Or you could just exaggerate about your emotions about something. All right, this is a huge tip. It's kind of related to coming up with a whole bunch of headlines. So, the key to quality is quantity. Even the most hilarious people in entertainment come up with loads of crappy ideas. The more ideas you create, the more funny ones you'll end up with. So, let's say you come up with 10 headlines, 10 ideas. It's totally fine if 9 of them are kind of lame, because one of them will probably be kind of good. And you can turn to the person next to you in class and say, all right, which one do you think is the most funny? Or just ask yourself or ask a family member. Here's what comedians usually do. They will usually perform at night, but then they'll be writing their ideas, their joke ideas, by day, and they won't try their new stuff out on the big stage right away. They'll probably go to little open mics or small events, small comedy events, trying out their content, and whichever jokes get the most laughs, they'll keep those and they'll keep changing their act until They get lots of laughs all the time, and then that's the one that they'll perform on the big stage at some big comedy club or something. This is good advice for any creative endeavor you have. If you become a creative writer, or if you write music, or if you're a painter or sculptor or something, it's a really good idea to just create a bunch of stuff, because if 75% of it is bad, probably some of it will be good. That is the way to get quality stuff. All right, tip number 7, don't fall in love. You might love a particular idea you came up with, but if the editor of your newspaper isn't into it, you'll have to scrap it. Avoid heartbreak and just come up with many ideas, not just one idea, baby, that you love. So because you don't have a newspaper editor, in this case, it's like if you show your ideas to a friend and they're like, and it's not that funny, at least you'll have other ideas to fall back on because you don't care so much about that one idea. Remove needless words. Humor usually isn't that wordy. I mean, unless that's the joke you're trying to make, unless you're trying to make something super complicated or something. But usually, keep it simple. Here's one suggestion. You could be weirdly specific. Not sure why this is funny, but sometimes it is. For example, I'm in the way here. For some reason, number 2 is more funny than number 1. So, number 1, she splashed her wine in his face. 2, she splashed her light-bodied yet complex Pinot Noir 2013 in his face. I don't know, for some reason, this picture of someone splashing this fine wine that's specifically this particular year, it's a bit more funny. I don't know. Use a surprise or a twist. This is a really big tip I have for you. Let me move myself down. This is what almost all comedians do. They create expectations with a story and then break them. You'll start noticing this now that I've told you. Here's an example. I have to move myself again. I've been getting into astronomy, so I installed a skylight. The people who live above me are furious. I think that's kind of cute. So you expect that if someone put a skylight in their home, like they cut a hole in their roof, they're on the top floor. So the broken expectation here is, no, they have people living above them. So here's how you create a surprise or twist. It says how behind my face. And I want you to use this. If you wrote your newspaper article, your funny newspaper article, and you're like, I'd like to make this more funny. What should I do? Maybe pick a few statements in that article, think about what the assumptions are, and then break them. So here's a systematic way to do that. And I got this advice from a couple different sources, toastmasters.org, but also this humor masterclass I watched online about a year ago. Come up with one normal statement, then write down 10 assumptions about it. For example, I had eggs for breakfast. The eggs were probably cooked. The eggs were what I wanted. It was a reasonable amount of eggs. They were chicken eggs. I ate them off a plate. This is what we automatically assume when we hear someone say this sentence. 5 more. Breakfast probably happened in the morning. We assume it happened today. We assume the eggs were mine to eat. We assume the person was at home or in a restaurant. And by had, I mean I ate them. Didn't just have them in my pocket. All right, so if we break these 2 assumptions, they were chicken eggs and I was at home or in a restaurant, here's an example. I had eggs for breakfast. They were fresh, they were delicious, they were Cadbury. So you're like, oh, they were chocolate eggs. Here's another one. I had eggs for breakfast. Don't you hate when every time you're about to take a bite, the light turns green? So then you realize, okay, they're trying to eat eggs while driving. That one's not quite as funny, but you get the picture. So I want you to do this. Be systematic about it. To add something funny, think about what the assumptions are for a statement you already made, and then break them somehow. That's basically what punchlines are within comedy. All right, tip number 11, proofread. Mistakes are not funny, they're distracting, unless that's your joke, unless you're pretending in your funny writing that you're pretending that you're an arrogant person who thinks they're really intelligent, but then the writing itself is full of mistakes that could potentially be funny, but otherwise, no mistakes. Check, double check, triple check, have a friend check. Tip 12, make it clear. If your jokes are too complicated, dumb people will be confused. That's a little mean. Speaking of mean, don't be mean. If a joke goes too far, people won't laugh. They'll just cringe. So be careful there. And my last tip, get feedback. Never hurts to ask someone you think is funny to check your work, or just ask any friend or family member. Be like, do you think this is funny? Or how do you think I can make this more funny? Always good to get feedback. All right, the last slides are some ideas for you. Because what I want you to do, like I said, is come up with 10 headline ideas and then pick the one you find most funny to write the actual article on. The article itself will only be 100 words or more. That's basically a journal entry. So it's not a huge pressure thing. Once again, I'm not judging you on how funny you are because it's so hard to write in a funny way. Anyway, here are some ideas. So these are screenshots of past school newspapers that I published at Tirsa. Yes, Tirsa Times. Here are some of the headlines. Kanye's Southeast running for president. So it's like pretending it's Kanye West. Aliens are real. We live in a simulation. Is Batman a man, a bat, or a man-bat? Shocking answer. Pigpox. Usually a headline would say more than just pigpox. There would usually be a verb in there. But whatever. This article was pretty funny, actually. Cats can write. Here's an example of where there are tons of spelling mistakes here, but that's part of the joke. Because the joke is that a cat is the one writing this. Vampires. Very real. Baby spotted soaring over Sweden. Mozzarella actually moomin meat. That's kind of cute one. Parents in panic. This one was about kids being zombies on their phones and zombie apocalypse. Like the zombies were not touching the kids because the kids were zombies as well, but phone zombies. Grandma accidentally joins Insta and becomes influencer. That was cute. All right. I hope you feel some inspiration. Good luck on your satire article.